Right. Hi there, welcome back to the Full Disclosure channel. I am Dani Henderson, and today I have a new friend for you, a man I saw years ago, years and years and years ago, I think on the Sean Atwood channel. I'm a big fan of Sean, as you know, been on his channel many times. I saw Michael Feeley and I was like, oh my God, that man is so fascinating. And then I lost sight of him. And then the other day you popped up on Facebook and I grabbed the friend button and you answered, and here we are talking today. And I am delighted, Michael Feeley, to have you on my channel. I'm going to hand over to you. You are fascinating. There are so many subjects to you, like me. You couldn't give an ass what anyone thinks of you. Off you go, mate. The floor is yours. Who are you? Why are you here?
Thank you very much. Well, I'm Michael Feeley. I was born in a place called Walsall in the West Midlands of the UK. And just geographically, that is fairly close to Birmingham. So if you look at a map of the UK and find Birmingham, it's close by where I was born in the centre. I was brought up on what is known as a council estate, which is really just a standard estate run by the council with council houses. Nothing particularly special. I went to secondary education. And when I look back at my, should we say, school reports, my teachers were describing, in a nice way, a substandard child, which was me, saying that I never contributed to the classroom, never asked for any help, would never involve myself in what was going on. And they were describing, as I say, a substandard child. I would spend many, many hours in my bedroom because that's where I found solace. I never found any alignment with this world. I always found as if I'd been dropped off on the wrong planet. I didn't belong here. I didn't really gel with anything that was going on because it made no sense. I would sometimes sit and watch, at the age of 6 and 7, I would watch particular movies such as The Ten Commandments with Charlton Heston, where he played the character called Moses. And I would sit there at the age of 6 or 7, having adult conversations with myself. Did this man exist? Could this really happen? Did it really happen? Is there any historical evidence to suggest it did? So I was having very adult conversations at a very young age. So when it came to a careers time, and you have careers officers come in saying, what would you like to be when you leave school for the rest of your life? I always wanted to join the police force. It was just this inner energy that I wanted to help people. I wanted to protect people. I literally wanted to be there at their time of need. And that can be a kind of a cliche, but for me, it wasn't. And eventually, after many applications, because at the time, not so much now, but at the time, it was an extremely difficult career to get into because there was so much competition for so limited space. But eventually, I was accepted into the police force, and I started in the Met in London, and I signed for 30 years. And I was on the front line. I was on the response. So I was dealing with emergency calls. I was dealing with non-emergency calls. You could literally go from a basic shoplifter at Asda, and your next call could be a multiple murder. It was that varied. It was that different. You could never predict.
Your sound, sorry to interrupt, your sound is going down. That's crazy. Your literally sound is going down. It's like someone was literally turning the volume down. I thought it was my end. It's your end. Wow, that's nuts. Sorry, do continue.
No, it just for the audience, a lot of things do happen to my interviews. Non-human entities entered the studio and all kinds of things to try and put things off. But just to continue, as I say, I was frontline. It was a varied career. You could never predict what was going to happen. But it taught me how to find evidence. It taught me how to listen to evidence. It taught me that when somebody is telling you one thing and the evidence suggests another, that you go with the evidence. And it taught me to piece that together in a way where I could present that succinctly in a courtroom, where all the judges care about, all the jury cares about, is the basics. And it taught me to do that in a succinct way. So written and orally, I can give evidence succinctly. As I said, I joined for 30 years, but around about year 17, or leading up to year 17 of that 30, I began to experience what you would call otherworldly things. And these things would be happening literally every day or every night. And just a few examples of the things that would happen is I was on night duty once in a patrol car with my partner. And as we were driving down the road, we looked up at the sky, and all of a sudden this gigantic portal opened up in the sky. And as we watched it expanding, we then saw some kind of craft come out the end of the portal. The portal then dissipated, but the craft continued across the sky. There were other instances where we were involved on night duty. I am convinced to this day it was a landing, some kind of craft, some kind of landing, because all the street lightings were going out. There were underground electricity manholes exploding, manhole covers going up in the air. There were people reporting small silhouettes in their garden in this area. And when we were there was nothing there. We'd leave the house, they would call again saying, there's intruders in my garden. And it was just one of those eerie, we're not in control feelings. There was other instances where I've seen balls of fire in the sky that actually followed the police helicopter back to its base, and the police helicopters refused landing permission until this thing had actually gone. And the photograph that I took of it was completely different to what we'd seen. There'd be instances where me and 3 friends were telepathically invited to a specific location, which is really the theme of Close Encounters of the Third Kind movie of the 1980s. And when we got there was 4 of us, there was 4 monoliths, and we were all told that we needed to stand at a monolith each and then walk to the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one, until we actually returned back to the original monolith. It was almost like a baseball home run. And what we were doing, because there was a ship above us, was actually creating some kind of portal. And there was things coming from all directions and going up into the portal. There'd be another incident where I was at an event on a Saturday afternoon, and I came face to face with, I would only describe him as a man in black. You know, his eyes were completely black. The skin of his face was pulled tight, so you could see all the cheekbones and the contours of his face. His hair was very brittle down to his shoulders. He's probably about 6'2", 6'3", and as he walked into the room, you had the street, then you had a small cafe, and then you had the arena where the event was. And as you walk into the cafe, it's one of those doors where a little bell rings to alert staff that someone's coming. And the little bell rang, and this person walked in, and he was going, as he walked into the room. Now, there's quite a few people in the cafe, but there's only me and the 2 friends who actually reacted. And this character then went into the main arena and then just simply disappeared. So there's been so many different incidences. You know, I've had ET beings coming through mirrors into my room and all different things. I was invited to do a UFO conference years ago, and as soon as I said yes, there were beings that were actually writing the PowerPoint presentation for me, and they're putting all the slideshow in my head, and I actually used that. And as I was giving my talk, they actually got off their ship and came and watched the talk. As soon as my talk had finished, the both of them went back and disappeared. So this really was my daily life, and as a result of these things, which my experiences also included remote viewing time travel, I was not the same person again. I could never be the same person again. So I began being a multiple experiencer, which caused me to leave my career at year 17. Then I began to understand what I was experiencing. I then began to get lots and lots of quantum equations in my head that related to all kinds of different things, from the cure to all the illnesses, to how to use Earth as a free energy capacitor, how to create portals, you know, how to find these portals, how to find the true moon, because the moon that we see is not the moon. And then in recent times, I was approached by a certain genius of the past. Of course, I refer to the past, but there's no such thing as the ancient past. It is literally a parallel existence that is still going on. But for want of a better expression, I will use the past. So there's a particular genius of the past that presented himself to me a couple of years ago now and gave me a lot of information about myself in a previous existence. And I'll identify that person at the moment. But what I was also told, and what I now realise, is that there were several famous scientists of the past who, unbeknown to me, had always been with me throughout my life. And they had been priming me and preparing me for this particular individual to be able to step in from that point. And I've identified two of that group, two of that team. And the two of the team who were priming me were Nikola Tesla and Isaac Newton.
Do you know my boyfriend?
Yes,
I
Nikola
always
Tesla.
joke that he's my boyfriend. Yeah.
Yeah. So Nikola Tesla, even now, Nikola Tesla will put an image of himself in my head, and then I will get lots and lots of free energy equations come through. Now, what most people don't know is Nikola Tesla, by his own admission, used to get lots and lots of quantum equations pop into his head during sleep time, which is what happens to me. But what most people don't know is it was Leonardo da Vinci who was giving him those equations. Now, the famous genius who I've just mentioned is Leonardo da Vinci. And Leonardo da Vinci and I worked together in medieval times. Now, the images behind me of Leonardo's paintings was me. And I was his scribe and student in medieval times. My nickname was Salai, Sal. And because of that connection in medieval times, he has come back to reconnect with me now. And he has asked me to continue and complete the work that he never got to finish. So if you imagine that in any given day, I am getting equations such as this from three geniuses of the past, and I have to work them out. So I'm getting equations from Nikola Tesla, I'm getting gravity equations from Isaac Newton, and I'm getting all kinds of equations from Leonardo da Vinci. So when I wrote this, Leonardo did the foreword, and Leonardo has contributed to many advanced sciences, including space travel and all kinds of things in that book. So it is really co-written with Leonardo da Vinci. So that is my life in a nutshell. I now continue to scribe for Leonardo, for Nikola Tesla, and for Isaac Newton.
That's fascinating. And of course, there are people that will go, cuckoo, what a doodle do. And of
They
course,
already have. And
yeah.
what I've said to them, and I've even said this to scientists, incidentally, there have been scientists who have seen some of those equations and they've actually validated them, even though they won't put the name to it. Even secret military scientists have validated it as being an advanced science that we're not aware of. So yes, people will say cuckoo, but what I say to them, and what I've said to scientists is, firstly, I don't care. Secondly, do you admit, and this is the question I pose to scientists, do you admit that me being here and you being there, and me being able to speak to you and you being able to speak to me, some kind of process has had to have occurred for that to have happened? And the scientists have no choice but to say, yes, some kind of process has occurred for that to happen. And all I say is, well, why couldn't that exact same process have happened before? Straight away, there is
Yeah.
no answer to it.
Yeah.
Because people do not understand who they are, what they are, and what the universe is, because they are going on the program that society has given them.
Exactly. I really appreciate you saying that you are not the incarnation of Leonardo da Vinci, because you know the 15,000 men and women out there that say they are going to be very upset with you. You know, and I'm slightly making fun because it's got to the point of ridiculousness. I was in town with my sister in London. We went to a hen weekend for our niece. She's getting married. We were walking around the very center of the financial center, and we're going down these ancient little alleyways, and there's these monolithic statues and buildings and temples. And oh, I've got goosebumps now because there were so many eerie kind of points. And I was watching these beautiful drag queens, these beautiful men with ballerina bodies, throwing themselves around the floor in these huge high shoes and doing the splits. And I'm holding my nuts that I don't have because they were slamming so hard on the ground. And I met them all outside after. I'm like, oh my God, are you guys okay? Like, that looks so painful. But I was watching a replay patterning of abuse, of trafficking, of our, you know, and the ancient times, and you could feel it all, like all in one. And I've slightly lost my point here because I remember just all these emotions I was feeling like you, feeling all the layers of time and all the many people that walk there, and how so many things are the same still in 2025. We can still feel that pull from the past. But going back to how people are obsessed with themselves, and I was saying, my sister, we were talking about ancient times and past lives, and I said to her, do you know, she's not as like gobby as I am, and she's a lot younger than me. And I said, do you ever feel connection as we're walking through to the past? And she said, yes and no. I said, well, who would you be? She goes, well, not bloody Cleopatra. And I said, absolutely. I said, and when someone says, I was Cleopatra, the question is, which one, love? There were at least 300 of them through the whole of ancient Egypt as pharaohs, you know, and the last one was obviously Cleopatra Ptolemy. And that's the one that most people think they were. And they get so offended and so rageful and angry and aggressive. Like, how dare you say I wasn't there? You know, and it's like, calm yourself down. You know, so what would you say to those people too?
What I would say to those people is Leonardo da Vinci only ever incarnated on Earth once. So all of those people who say that Leonardo da Vinci, they're not. And I can say that because I speak to him every day. Now, when I say anything that comes from Leonardo and when I quote him, it has come from him directly. I am to reveal all of the true secrets of his paintings. People show me many different books, many different articles, many different things on Leonardo da Vinci. They even say that they've done an overlay of his face over some of his paintings, and it can prove that it is a self-portrait. The biggest mistake that they're making is every single picture that we have in circulation of Leonardo da Vinci in a public place is not him. We don't have, I do, but nobody has actually seen a true picture of Leonardo da Vinci. The one, the image that people are using the most, that they say is Leonardo da Vinci, is actually his grandfather Antonio. It is not him.
Really?
So Leonardo only once incarnated. So nobody else is Leonardo da Vinci.
Okay, I got to ask you this question. Okay, so I will tell you what I believe, and if I'm wrong, I don't mind being wrong. I mean, we're all here to learn, right? I don't believe the Mona Lisa is a picture of him. People have said, "Oh, he was a transvestite. He was this. He was that." It's not him. That is a separate woman. Is
Do you
that
know who? No, do you know who it is?
no
It is a feminization of self, me.
of you? But because
Yes,
the one behind you looks much more like her with the finger pointing up. It
that
feels
is
like
that
Mona.
is Sal. That is Sal, who is me medieval times. And what he did is he feminized the male, and the feminized male became the Mona Lisa.
Wow.
So it is not a woman. It is not Leonardo. It is Salai feminized, and
Which
that's why I'm saying Leonardo spent 3 days with me teaching me about the Last Supper painting. 3 days,
right, right.
3 days straight, because there's that much in there. Now,
Cool.
all of the conclusions that people are coming out with, they're not accurate. There's things in Salvador Mundi, Vitruvian Man, uh, John the Baptist, Bacchus, Mona Lisa, Last Supper. All of these things, some of them are personal, private messages to me now that have come through time. So they were encrypted in the paintings then, because I was there when the secrets were encrypted, and I will be the one to reveal what they truly mean.
All right. So, okay, you can't say all that and then not like, okay, now I'm very excited. I mean, I was excited before Michael Feeley, but now I'm really excited. Okay. Let's just go one step back. Vitruvian Man, just point to it in case people don't know what it is. It's right there.
That's for true. It's the one where you've got the four arms, the four
Yeah,
legs.
the divine blueprint.
The
And
divine.
I read that he actually existed. There was an actual Dr. Vitruvius. Can you confirm that?
There was somebody called Vitruvius who did the original Vitruvian Man, even though it was slightly different to Leonardo's Vitruvian Man. The original Vitruvian Man by Vitruvius had two arms straight up in the air, whereas Leonardo was put it there. In essence, there's so much to go into in each painting, but in essence, Vitruvian Man hides the higher octave of man.
The
And
high octave.
the higher octave of man. It hides. There's a higher octave of man code that exists in all things that I've researched, from the Great Pyramid, the Sphinx of Egypt, John the Baptist, the liquid mercury of the pyramids that they found in Vitruvian Man itself. All of these codes, even in space travel, there is this 144 light code.
Right.
And that is also hidden within Vitruvian Man. So it is really bridging the gap between dimensions, but it is also the higher octave of Man. Now, when you reach that higher octave, which is 144, you are reconnecting to the higher places of the universe. And all of these things are encrypted within Vitruvian Man.
Okay.
So it is teaching people to get to that higher soul place.
So if
And
we
that is one of the encryptions within Vitruvian Man.
got it.
You
So
also notice, sorry to interrupt, you also notice that the arms are like the wings of an aeroplane, because what is suggested is that we go through life and we will change direction many, many times before we actually get into that divine space. And that is also encrypted in the way that the feet are pointed. It forms a double chevron. That double chevron is, in Hebrew, is called Shibboleth. Now, when you get to the entrance of the Great Pyramid, that is a double chevron. Now, the double chevron means where the two worlds meet. It is 0 point where all time converges as one thing.
Brilliant, brilliant. So much to break down there. You mentioned the 144 equates to the higher octave that's kind of shown geometrically through the Vitruvian image. So
Yes.
what would be the musical equivalent if we're using terms as higher octave as a means for a being to reach its full potential, is I think in essence kind of what you're saying. So what would be the musical equivalent of 144 in terms of reaching that higher octave?
It is 1,440 hertz.
Oh, okay. All right.
Because what you have really, an octave is really a double up or a double down.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have the circle, you have 360. When you double the circle, you have 720. 720 hertz is the centered octagram. Now, when you look at Vitruvian Man, it is the octagram because it's the number 8. Now, the center, the navel, is 720 hertz. Now, when you double 720 hertz, you get 1,440. So you go 360, 720, 1,440, and that's all also encrypted in Vitruvian Man. So 1,440 hertz is the higher octave of Man, which is encrypted in all ancient things.
Mm-mm. You know, it bothered me so much. It kind of, I laughed and cried at the same time. You know, when these ideas get spun out, when the Illuminati cabal try and really confuse humanity, and then we're all going, I'm one of the 144 chosen. No, I'm one of the 100. And I'm thinking, what a load of bollocks. There's billions of us on the planet. Most of us are equally beautiful. There's only a bunch of really evil, genociding bastards that need putting down slowly, who are trying to rule everything. Of course, that's a ridiculous, insane, ego-driven number. It's a complete lie. So I've been pushing against it. And you know, that's lovely that you know, and I've heard other things with
Yeah.
144,000 points of light, or oh my gosh.
Well,
Yeah.
but 144 does relate to light, but what you have to realize is that there's a lot of spiritual ego. Now,
The
when you
last
have
lot, your
a lot
volume is being
of
messed up again.
a lot of spiritual ego, what you have is when you look at the Bible is talking to initiates, not parishioners, who
Uh-huh.
have completely wrong. And I'll give you an example in a moment of how the Bible speaks to initiates, because it is a manuscript for initiates.
Mhm.
When you have the number 144,000, it has a harmonic. The harmonic of 144,000 is 144. So what it is saying is the 144,000 are those who have reached the higher octave of Man. And they will be with Christ, who is not a person, was never a person. It is a metaphor for your own Christification. The same in Egypt, it is a Sarified. So when you've reached a certain level, you become Christified. And that is what Christ is, not a person. So the 144,000 with Christ are those who become Christified because they've reached the higher octave of Man, which relates to 144. So all of these things, all the Bible characters, all the Bible stories, as I say, are for the initiates. The word Moses means initiate. When you start looking at Sinai, Mount Sinai, Sinai means teeth. It is speaking the truth. So let me give you an example of how the Bible speaks to initiates and not to churchgoers. When we look at the Bible, we see Simon carries the cross for Christ. Now that is at a 72-degree angle. So the number 72 relates to, in music, GB. Seventh number, second number, 72, which relates to F sharp. F sharp creates portals. It is a pyramid number. It controls reality. So we have F sharp. Now the word Simon means Shimon, to ear. So what it is telling the initiates is you must listen to F sharp. Now when you listen to F and F sharp, it is 1 1 1 1 11 11, which equals a mind expanded. That is one example of how the Bible speaks to initiates.
Okay.
It is an instruction book for
Brilliant.
initiates.
I love all the different layers and metaphors. It's important because we're going to get it differently on this individual journey. We're going to absorb information such as what you're giving, and for some people, that's going to be bang on. Now, as we look at the G flat and the F and the F sharp, how do you get 11.11 from the F and the F sharp? I missed that bit.
Because of how you play the 11th note. So it relates to the 11th note. So when you have F and F sharp, you're playing the 11th note in music. So it becomes 11 11. But F sharp relates to a mind expanded. Now again, if you look at a particular symbol, which is the Star of David, I've had to do this 22 times to cover the 22 letters of the alphabet, of the Hebrew alphabet. But you can actually do it in one Star of David. The Star of David contains every single letter of the Hebrew alphabet, the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And it is a light code. It is all coded information that is there to repel the unready. So what you have, you will only ever see what you are. If you walk into an Egyptian temple or Stonehenge or anything else, you will only get back with what you are. When you look at hieroglyphs, you cannot work them out logically. What hieroglyphs are and the emerald tablets are, and the coded messages that are deciphered in crop circles are, every sound has a shape. Every shape that we see in our existence is the result of a sound. When that sound stops, it becomes geometry. And when it is still, it gives us the chance to observe, study, and learn the secret code of nature. So when you look at the pentagram, for instance, it contains mathematical pi and mathematical phi, which is the secret code of nature. And that is encrypted within the pentagram. So you are able to study the geometric shapes in churches, in cathedrals, in ancient temples, because it is sound that has become still. The ancients encrypted ancient, secret, sacred knowledge into these hieroglyphs. And that sound, that vibration, created the shapes that you see are hieroglyphical. So hieroglyphical shapes are knowledge contained within sound. And that is what crop circles are also. And the Nazca lines are actually a star map.
Yeah.
What I did with the Nazca lines is I took each of the images of Peru and I was able to correspond that to the different constellations. And I realized that it was a star map to the center of the galaxy. Why the center of the galaxy? Everything is a fragment of the same awareness. So when we're speaking in terms of what we believe to be extraterrestrials, that's just fragments of our own self. They are fragments of our own awareness. So you have one awareness, you have one soul that is fragmented into multiple different expressions. And that's what we all are. So that there's no differential between an ET or a human being. We are part of the same thing, and we are operating in a different place. But everything, you cannot only be aware here, You can be enlightened as a human, but that is only a fraction of enlightenment. You have to be aware everywhere. Each of your fragments has to be aware. And until every one of your fragments, your expressions, is aware, you cannot return back to your point of center. And that is why we have a lot of visitation, because they're trying to say, come on, look, we can't go until you do. We all have to go at the same time, at the same level. And we're just being G'd along and encouraged to get it. So with the center of the universe, everything is also going back to their point of center. So we're all a fragment of the same awareness. So when you look at what is the soul is the gaseous substance of the universe. That is the universal soul. Now that will express itself in many different places. So the soul of Earth is air. And we are all expressed within the same soul. So humans, animals, nature, Earth has a soul, which is air. And the universe has a soul, which is the gaseous substance, which is mainly hydrogen. And that fragments into different gases, depending upon the environment that that expression needs to exist. And that is why if you go to different planets, you'll see different environments, different chemical elements, different isotopes, because that is a different aspect of the same soul. It is a different part of the gaseous substance. So that is what we are all, that's what it's all about. That's why so-called ETs are coming back, because they're coming back to another fragment of themselves. Mm-hmm. There's no difference other than they live in a different time zone than we do.
No, thank you. This is good to express all the different layers of potential understanding for different people as they're trying to make sense of their own soul essence here in this physical body, like navigating in this avatar, in this thing we call life, in so many different ways. And it's interesting how, like, as a child, at 7, I was forced to go to a silly church, evangelical, so that was already programmed in. The image of Jesus was already programmed in. And one night I did meet a beautiful being who expressed as Jesus, surrounded by angels, but I was 7 and I was ready to kill myself. I wanted to be dead. I couldn't bear living on this planet with these idiot adults all around me. So I think it came and expressed as that, as the Christ, because I say I know he was a man because I met him. Do you know what I mean? But also, of course, we know about Christ consciousness. Of course, we know we're supposed to become that. This is the higher octave and beyond that you're talking about. So it's lovely to give it in layers, because again, because of my lovely audience that come, they know the story. I've shared it several times. Obviously, I have to then share it with you because I've never shared that with you. Again, to show to people it's okay to have different opinions. This is one of the problems we're having now at the end of this spiritual war, which I believe we are coming to the end of, where we've all had these friends and we all talk about similar things and it's all been great. And then someone came and took a dump in the middle and decided to change the game for their ego, for their career, for their whatever. And they've taken very confused little sheeple with them. And people are now scared. They're going, oh God, what do I do? What do I do? I won't go to that conference because I don't know what I'm doing now. They've lost their path. They've lost their faith in themselves. And I am determined that people will come to understand my love. We're on an individual journey. Someone like Michael Feeley expressing himself as Michael Feeley and as Saul and pointing ancient pictures from the time of Leonardo da Vinci, and you presenting as the reincarnation of his actual scribe. It's fascinating. It then gives other people courage to explore their own expression as a past life personality, or maybe they'll realize that they're just fantasizing and clinging to something that isn't true, right?
Well, what you have to realize is that different opinions was created as part of the universal plan. Because what we do in every day, what people see in themselves and what people see in others is really a mirror of what they can see in the universe. So the universe is simply a mirror, and it reflects back to you what you are. So when people say, I've prayed and I've asked for and I don't get, that's because the universe listens to your vibration, not your words. And it doesn't give you what you ask for because there's no intention there, but there's always that subconscious doubt. So the signals that it gets, if you imagine yourself to be an aerial, transmitter and receiver, which ironically is what the Great Pyramid is. But if you consider yourself as an aerial, what you transmit Your dominant frequency is what the universe reflects back. So you can watch all of the law of attraction DVDs you wish for. Unless you are sustaining that dominant frequency for long enough that the universe has no choice but to mirror it back to you, you will not get what you ask for. So that's why I'm saying is when you walk into these ancient temples, you only see what you are. You don't see what you're not. So when you look at most people in any given day will hear many different opinions of other people. And what you do is you say, I like what you said there. I'll take that on board. I don't like it doesn't resonate with me. I'm not going to have that. But that's what the universal mind is doing. Mm-hmm. And the only way that it can do that is by having multiple different things to consider. And that is why we have multiple different opinions. So it doesn't mean to say that one person is right or one person is wrong. It just means that just like duality doesn't really exist, these two opinions don't really exist. It's two vibrations of the same note. But the universal mind can then consider all of that data, all of that information, and then make an informed decision. Yeah. And that is why we have all of these different opinions. You have to realize that there are, of course, there are the chosen ones who we say are of the light. But there's also the chosen ones that you would consider of the dark. Now, when you go to the theatre, you boo at the villain and you cheer the hero. Because they are acting a role so good, you get engrossed in that show. And you begin to believe it. Now, in the green room after the show, there's no hero and there's no villain. We are in a theatre. Yeah. And the people who are the chosen dark ones and the chosen light ones can often get lost in their role. And they begin to believe that that role is reality. Reality is not what we see. Reality is actually filaments of light. It is a grid. And if you can see the stars, they're not individual pockets of light. They are connected by lines of light, the same way that the Earth is connected by magnetic ley lines. And that is the same there as it is here. It is a gigantic grid. Now, when we see the likes of UFOs doing 90-degree turns, the reason that they're doing 90-degree turns is that is traveling what is called the W axis. The W axis is 90 degrees, and that takes you between dimensions. That's what they're doing. So reality is truly a grid, not what we see.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go back a step to the Last Supper. Now, we know that there are people who will die, or they'll fall on the sword, they will swear allegiance to Jesus, and they will maim you, kill you, even though they're good old Christians. They will take you apart and imprison you and judge you because they cannot allow themselves to be wrong. That's what it comes down to, in my opinion.
Which has been said to me, Jesus will come and kill you for that. And all I said was, is that the love of Christ coming out in you? And they shut up.
Oh my God.
Because they're basically, what you have, and we will go back to the Last Supper, but what you have is knowledge is only a part of the equation. You have to live the knowledge. And if you don't live the knowledge, it's of no use. It becomes, shall we say, a danger. It becomes a chaos. So the Last Supper is not Christ. The word Christ means bread, seed, and that is why when you break the bread, you are spreading the seed of knowledge. A lot of the ancient teachings, the Elohim, the Druids, the oak tree, the Great Pyramid even, it relates to the seed. And the seed is knowledge. And the word Christ means seed. So we are breaking the bread and we are spreading the seed of knowledge across the world. And the Last Supper is not Christ.
Mm-hmm. I enjoy the story of Mary Magdalene being the man that came and visited me in my room, his lover, and having children. I enjoy that very much. I attach to that. I enjoy it. I have a resonance to it. So I've attached myself to that story. And obviously what we're told we're seeing is the symbolism of the womb and the separation and the betrayal and all. There's so many different things, and of course it's been bastardized by the controllers at the top recently at the Olympics, and they all denied it. you see Madonna and her whatever she's trying to do and be, do the same thing and it be offensive or whatever, mock it, whatever. But a lot of people like they really take that seriously. So they will be offended, obviously, by this conversation, which is fine. They can just go and watch, I don't know, SpongeBob SquarePants if they want, or Little House on the Prairie. Be gone. We don't care because we've got to have these conversations. So I've
Yes.
just expressed I do think I do love Jesus and I'm not religious at all. Biggest killer on the planet apart from mosquitoes. Let's not even talk about Bill Gates and his manufactured mosquitoes because that murdering bastard from hell is determined that those of us that didn't want to take the jab, what did he call it? Vaccine refusal or vaccine apprehension, some bollocks, he said. So now he's made all these been manufacturing literal mosquitoes that will be injecting people with the COVID murderous weapon of.
Well,
I digress, please.
Bill Gates is well aware of the science of water and fluids because he bought Leonardo's work for 30 million. And the work that he actually bought of Leonardo was all about the science of water and fluids and hydraulic systems. So Bill Gates is well aware from one of the biggest geniuses that ever lived once, because he bought Leonardo's water.
When?
Water. I can't remember when, but he bought it for 30 million.
Gosh, was that public knowledge? Was it just,
Public knowledge. Well, it's public knowledge if you look for it.
yes, yeah,
Nothing. I have to emphasize that nothing is secret, nothing is hidden. The only reason that things are so-called hidden, concealed, is that people do not understand what they look at, do not look at what they see.
yeah.
When you look at the word Mona Lisa and you put the word Mona Lisa in a mirror, it becomes a nomosil. Nomosil means ways of seeing, and that is exactly what I'm saying. That you only see what you are,
Mm,
and the higher that you vibrate, the more that you have expanded your mind, the more you will see.
mm.
So, yeah, I don't think it was too long ago, maybe in the last decade or so, but he certainly bought the science of water, Leonardo's
Yeah.
scientific work, for 30 million. So Bill Gates is well aware from the greatest who ever lived about the science of
Like
water.
giving a baby matches, such a power hungry freakoid of nature. And I'm constantly bashing him. I can see dragonflies outside my windows. Beautiful sign of magic. I was thinking a minute ago about you that, and there's three or four of them. I've got a screen on, so I can't show you. But how beautiful is that? But I've let my grass grow like 2 foot long as well. It's like a wilderness out there. I love it. I've completely forgot. Oh yeah, Druid. If I was to look at you, which I do as a clairvoyant, and I look through people, not on purpose, it just comes, you totally presented yourself as a druid as part of this conversation. I'm like, well, it wouldn't surprise me at all if you have had an experience as a really grounded druid. What do you think about that?
Potentially, I'm aware of several experiences. I'm aware of being an initiator in the Egyptian temples. I'm aware that I'm a direct descendant of pharaohs. Uh, I'm a direct descendant of Irish royalty. So there's a lot of things that's in my blood. Now, obviously, Druidism, in essence, is Egyptian knowledge.
Yeah.
So it stands a chance that there's some kind of chronological order because everything that I know, there's always been a life of digging and delving and discovering.
Yeah.
And this life is no different to all of the ones that I'm aware of.
Right. Ancient mystery schools, but the Druids didn't really keep it a mystery.
Yeah.
They were advanced. I don't believe in ancient mystery schools. How rude. It kept a lot of us away from knowledge that was always naturally, inherently ours, no matter what they said in the past. Aristotle, Socrates, I mean, up theirs as far as I'm concerned. That's so rude. I wanted to ask you also, you mentioned several things, but just to finish on the Last Supper, like, so you said that you believe that Leonardo da Vinci express symbology in that painting for you. So what is your, oh, you
Not
didn't, I thought I heard
well.
you say that.
He expressed symbology in that painting to preserve his own life, first of all. Secondly, for humanity generally. There are paintings that I've come across. Salvatore Mundi is an example. Salvatore Mundi is that one. You know, the one where it's meant to be Christ, but it's not. But Salvador Mundi, I have found a message, personal message from Michael Feeley from the past in Salvador Mundi. But the Last Supper generally, what Leonardo did, he was commissioned by a lot of aristocracy to do certain things. In fact, he was kind of, should we say, pressured and forced to do them. Now, he had to do it in a way that was, should we say, detailing authorized scripture. Because the Vatican runs the world now, but certainly it is more subtle now than it was in medieval times. In medieval times, the Vatican ruled and it was their law. So when they commissioned, or people connected to the Vatican commissioned Leonardo to do certain paintings, a certain image or a certain, should we say, authorized scripture was expected. So what Leonardo did cleverly was give them that. And he gave them a biblical scripture, which was the Last Supper of Christ. But secretly, that's not what it is. What he has done is he's given you many, should we say, bits of information that tell you what it really is, while portraying the image of Christ and the disciples. Now, I spoke to a lady a couple of months ago who said, well, Leonardo was Catholic. He has Christ on his paintings. And I said, he's done exactly the same to you as what he's done to the Vatican. You believe that that's Christ. And so do they. But it's not. So what you have, again, in essence, Leonardo was part of what is known as the old religion. Now, the old religion is Hermetic Kabbalah.
Mm-hmm.
And Hermetic Kabbalah comes from Egyptian Gnosticism. It's Egyptian knowledge. So the old religion is the Hermetic Kabbalah. Now, they have what is known as an Hermetic discourse. An Hermetic discourse is a debate. Now, the word Hermetic means to seal. So it is usually in a place that is known as the Hermetic seal. But it is also always in an Egyptian setting. So the Last Supper is set in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid, which is an Hermetic seal, F sharp as a musical tone. So it is an Hermetic seal. And what they are discussing is it the right time to disclose? Is it the right time to give the public certain information? Now, these debates are often conducted in what is known as within windowless walls. So in other words, you don't know what's going on because it's behind closed doors. Yeah. There are not windows. It is a windowless wall. But Leonardo has put 3 windows. So what he's telling you is we are allowing you access to look into what's going on. And in essence, it is really an Hermetic discourse where they are discussing certain things, such as Egypt, such as the world, such as the future. And that is what is going on. It is really a student of Hermes Trismegistus called Asclepius, and he's the Christ figure that is chairing the debate. Now, there's many different things in that painting. You know, if I was to go through every single different hand symbol, every single different body position, every single person would be here for a long time. But you have to realize that sometimes one name hides the identity of 2 people. Mm-hmm. So when you look at the beloved disciple who Jesus loved more than any of the others, who we are told is Mary Magdalene, he's not. Because when you look at the feminine figure that is showing that V, it is, we are told officially, the disciple John. But the name John is hiding the identity of 2 historical figures, which is Magdalene and Lazarus.
And Lazarus.
Lazarus and
your sound keeps going. It's really irritating.
Okay. So we have John, who we're told is the feminine-looking disciple. We are told is John, the beloved disciple. But John, in mystical circles, hides the identity of 2 people. The first one is Magdalene, and the second one is Lazarus. Now, when you look into those 2 further, it becomes Isis and Osiris. Mm. Now, Osiris is the pupil of the eye, and Isis is knowledge through silent contemplation, which is what Mary Magdalene is. So silence is not the absence of noise, it is the presence of awareness. And if you wish to learn the ancient teachings, you have a place of, you do it in silence, which is the emetic seal. So Mary Magdalene is Sophia, the learning of wisdom through silent contemplation. And that is what Mother Mary is as well. Now, when you look at Isis, Isis is to silence the ego. All of this relates to Hermetic principles of teaching. It is about the silence. That is why monks are silent in the monastery. That is why you have monks sitting on the mountains of Tibet. It is to provide that place of awareness. This is where you learn. And you learn by listening, which is Simon, Shimon. So all of these things are Hermetic teachings, and that's what the Last Supper is. It is an Hermetic debate about whether or not it is the right time to release certain informations to the public. I said previously that the word Christ means seed. And when we break the bread, we spread the seed of knowledge. But in Leonardo's Last Supper painting, all the bread is unbroken. So in other words, the symbology of that is we don't spread the knowledge, we keep it to ourselves. And we keep it within this Hermetic seal, which is what you are looking at in the Last Supper. So the Last Supper was sold to the Vatican as an authorized scripture, but in essence, it's the Hermetic Kabbalah, the old religion. Where Christ comes in is the new religion. Christ was not a person. None of the biblical characters were people. None of the biblical stories were real. They are an instruction manual to initiates. And if you read it correctly, as I've just said about the number 72 and the cross carried by Simon, it speaks to initiates.
Interesting. Very interesting. And again, this channel makes no apologies to those who may be offended. If you're offended, because you decided to be offended, and it's all right. And none of us here are going to hell. Me and Michael are not going to hell for sharing thoughts. So
Hell is a condition of the body. It is not a place.
yeah, exactly.
So I've had all of the things under the sun.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I've been called a blasphemer, and I've said thank you, because I know what blasphemer really means. You know, I've had Christians come up to me and said, you know, you're arrogant, aren't you? And she said, so the whole world has been fed this lie except for you. I said, no, I was brought up on the same thing, but I saw through it. You know, and people are offended because deep down they know that their belief systems, there's a flaw. People are still, through programming, through societal pressure, through generational pressure, they are holding on to beliefs that were given to them thousands of years ago. And if you don't expand and take on new information and go with that new information, which is why I said at the beginning about following the evidence, you will always be in a static state of mind. And if you are in a static state of mind, you will never evolve. And if you never evolve, you are coming back.
Well,
and people have to realize that I've never said that Christ does not exist. What I have said is that Christ exists in a way that you don't know. Now, Christ does exist, but it is not an individual person. The whole of the Christ story, the whole of the cross, the whole of the resurrection is initiations.
Yeah.
That's what it is telling you.
Well, and again, the fact that, you know, the whole Christian religion was created 500 or so years after he was murdered, and he was murdered. Well, anyway, I mean, it's just ludicrous. And again, people, they were like, oh, Michael and Danny, next they'll be talking about crystals. And yeah, I love me a crystal. We've got one right here, Doris. It's called your pineal gland. But anyway, let's not stay too long on that, because Doris might have a heart attack and then I'll get sued. Let's go back a step to the Hermetic Kabbalah. Again, as people are doing their seeker's journey, and maybe he studied, Judaism, Catholicism, the Kabbalah with a K that was very popular at one point in LA. That's when I jumped on board, and I had the wrapping of the seven prayers and the red string, and I only wore it because I wanted to feel what it was like to remember, not to criticize and judge, not because I was worried about the evil eye coming at me. And I learned a lot of things that I found really fascinating, the electrical system in the body, the tree of knowledge, the tree of life, and all these amazing things that allowed me to think. And when it comes to Hermes or Trismegistus or the Hermetica, etc., it's led us down a point to Thoth or to Jehuti, who I believe was one of the original scientists, Anunnaki scientists, before he became the scribe in Egypt. I believe that Thoth or Jehuti is in existence and is an awakening giant and came here in service to humanity because we were genetically in advanced, let's say, by the Anunnaki. And let's say the one that I do believe is the Ea story or the original Enki story. And I believe that the Enlil aspect is the dark side, the horrific side, the genociding side. And it's just interesting that you brought up the Hermetic Kabbalah, which always takes my mind. Just want to say something
Yeah,
quick on the King's Chamber that you also raised. You said the King's Chamber, the sequence there, the frequence there is F sharp. So I know of more than one person, but I've seen someone that was a really good friend of the last 18 months, bit longer now, since he went into the King's Chamber and got in the box, which everyone thinks is, oh, let's get in the box, the dead box. They're not thinking about years of black magic, murder, sacrifice, rituals. Oh, let's get in the box, why don't we? Or a public humiliation ritual being photographed in there. That aside, this person was surrounded by women who were chanting over him, right? I thought it was all so great at the time. His behavior, his whole being, I'm watching it degrade. And this was a beautiful soul that
yeah.
many people, and is in denial and an aggressor and has gone completely the other way. So I really worry now for people that think it's so great to go in the middle of Stonehenge or so great to go, like, be careful, like, put up your protection. Now, what do you say to that?
I would say people's ignorance is dangerous. If you are going to participate in these rituals, in these things, you need to know what you are doing. You need to know what to say. You need to know from which vibration to speak. You need to have a knowledge base because it is dangerous and stupid to not. The amount of people, again, through spiritual ego that I've heard, oh, I've done an initiation of somebody in the Great Pyramid. On whose authority? Who are you to give an initiation to anybody? Do you know what danger you may be putting them in? Do you know what kind of spiritual guardians that are guarding that place?
Mhm.
You know, how many people have I heard saying, oh, we're going to Glastonbury the weekend to cleanse the land? Well, what does that mean? Do you know what you're doing? Do you know how to close the portals that you are opening? Because Glastonbury now is probably one of the darkest places you will go to because it's full of idiots that keep going there every weekend to cleanse the land.
Can I just tell you a quick thing? I was just there. I was invited to speak at the Glastonbury Symposium, right? And I'm going to tell you, I
Yeah,
was so flattered. I was so flattered because I've seen people like Graham Hancock and Freddie Silver on that stage. I went with my friend,
only,
and you.
only, I've been there.
Beautiful. Right, and I love Andy that puts it on, and I love the team, and the money was shit. It was like, I said, how much are you paying? I said, 180 quid. I'm like, what? I pay my speakers thousands. No wonder I'm going bankrupt. And they went, well, we can push it to 200. But anyway, honestly, I didn't care. And I took my friend Nikki Allen. She's beautiful. She's another very British clairvoyant psychic medium. I love Nikki. And we went together. We stayed in a haunted manor. It's crazy. And then we did the gig. I did the gig and I loved it and it was beautiful. And then we went across to the George, the pub. Now, not looking for it, right? I haven't been in the George for years. It's a medieval building. We're walking in and we're both going, oh my God, like we'll get boof, 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 because the spirits will come to you. Then now you can see him, bang, bang, bang. I'm like, bloody hell spells, this is hopping and jumping and leaping. And, yeah, it's like really super active at the moment. Yeah, just wanted to, confirm.
Yeah, no,
Um,
it's you have to understand what you can do. In August 1971, There were 5 men with a campfire and their tents set up at the centre of Stonehenge. The police were called, maybe because they shouldn't have been there, or they were making a noise, whatever. And as the police officer and the farmer who called them was walking towards them, there was a flash of light, there was a scream, and the men disappeared. Their campfire was still there, and their tents were still there, but the men just disappeared, never to be seen again. When I took a group tour to Stonehenge a couple of years ago, the lady who was a friend of mine, who was assisting on the day, we went into the centre of Stonehenge, and all of a sudden, and this is how she described it, she went into a trance. And there was a gentleman in a wheelchair, part of the group, and she said she had to touch the wheelchair to come back. She was going somewhere. She then began to do all of these different sounds from her voice. And the sounds that were coming from her voice, which were different octaves, different sounds, were making the stones of Stonehenge sing. So you had a circle of sonics being activated by the key, which was her voice.
Yeah.
The point being, we could have disappeared, we could have gone somewhere. Luckily we didn't, but we could have gone somewhere, because once you reach the sonic key that opens the gateway, you are gone. I know people who have been in the sarcophagus and been into the Great Pyramid, even people during the Second World War, and they've said, we went somewhere that we don't know where it was, because you are going through to different dimensions. I said that the Great Pyramid is an antenna, but it is also a tuning fork, and the Giza Plateau is an orchestra. So the Great Pyramid tunes the orchestra, which is the Great Pyramid, and that is shooting through the different dimensions. And if you hit the right octave, you're going with it. Mm-hmm. And this is, again, that the sarcophagus is a gateway.
Yeah.
Gateway to other places. You have to be sensible. You have to be careful, because you are dealing with forces that you don't understand.
Exactly. So years ago, I did not even know until I went to Egypt that there was the Valley of the Queens as well as the Valley of the Kings. So I'm in the Valley of the Kings, and we're right next door, me and my sister, to the Tutankhamun, and they are still excavating his burial site. Yes. And and it was to the left of me, because I can't remember. There were so many tombs he went into, and it's crazy. It's crazyville, and it's amazingville. And so we went down the slope to the very entrance of this burial chamber, and as we're standing there, suddenly I'm aware of these men from a different time wearing little white wraps around their bottoms and their private area, and they are standing aside this entrance, and they are humming. And the closest thing it was a Gregorian chant, which is Gregor was one of the Caesars of Rome, so obviously much earlier, but that's what we would describe that as a Gregorian, like low, low, low. But and I said to my sister, "Oh my God, can you hear that?" She's like, "No." And I said, "Wow, this is how they sealed their entrances." I'd never read it, never saw it in a film, never heard it. And this is who I am in the world. I learn by mostly physical experience, which is what I stand on. And people get really cross with me, but I'm like, no. If I haven't experienced it, I can't speak passionately to it. This is how I show up in the world. This is why I do my conference and pick the speakers I pick, because of their physical experience and an ability to bring proof. So that's amazing that you mentioned about the Stonehenge, the pitch frequency to another portal. Again, helping people understand. A while ago, you mentioned.
Sorry, but when you say humming, there's a lot of humming techniques. The Knights Templar use it to create the Holy Grail, etc. But the humming technique relates to the bee, and we have this thing at the nape of our neck called the Zeal chakra. Now, when you start pressing the Zeal chakra, now you'll see it in the Egyptian pictures. It looks like a scarf coming from the back of someone's neck. That is this nape, the eye of the nape. Now, when you start activating that, it secretes a nectar type substance. And it is this secretion, it is this gland that takes you to the imaginary world, to take you to different places, to take you where the two worlds meet. So the nectar, the bee, relates to these things, and they are recreating it. If you go to Roslin Chapel in Scotland, temperature of Roslin Chapel is the gestation temperature of a beehive. So, we have all of these humming techniques that take you to a certain vibration, and it produces the nectar, which of course is associated with bees, which then pollinate the world with knowledge. So it is all of these different things. You have the Sarmong, the Egyptian priests, the Sarmong, which means the beekeepers, the knowledge keepers, the nectar keepers. So all of these things are connected. But you will, in 2017, I was walking through an urban area, and all of a sudden I heard a strange, I can only describe it as kind of a whoosh kind of sound. And as I looked to my left, there was actually an Egyptian pharaoh walking alongside me. Now, I was still in the same city, I was still in the same place, but I felt as if it was almost like a see-through sphere. You could feel as if you were in somewhere. But at the same time that I could see the Egyptian pharaoh from the left-hand side, I could also see him directly from the front, and I could also look through his eyes. Now, what I realised a long time later is this happens in the fourth dimension. In the fourth dimension, you see a three-dimensional object from all sides at the same time. And that's what was happening. And then I went home on the same day and there were scattered beetles manifesting out of my wall and different things. So when we enter into the 0 point of the fourth dimension, all of these things come together at once. And in the third dimension, you see all angles at the same time. And that's what I saw in the Pharaoh. Because there isn't an ancient world. It is a parallel existence that is still active. There isn't a desolate, unused, empty Giza plateau on a different timeline, on a different dimension. It is fully working. And we see the stones as being static stones. In these other timelines, in these other dimensions, they move.
Yes.
They are living. They are living entities.
Yeah.
So there's so much that we do not understand about who we are, what the universe is, how we've been really, should we say, cattled into this very, very narrow bandwidth of vibration. And that very narrow bandwidth of a vibration has become an accepted reality. Anything outside of that reality is mocked. It is mocked by the establishment because they don't want people to know about it.
100%, yeah.
Because when you look through there, you are in a place that cannot be governed. And a control system doesn't want you in a place that they can't govern. So they start making you look stupid. They start saying that you're a conspiracy theorist. Conspiracy theory means to breathe together. And going back to how the soul is the gaseous substance of the universe, the spirit means to breathe. So you have these gases, these universal gases, this universal soul, and we inhale it and we exhale it. That is the spirit. That is the soul and the spirit. We breathe in and we breathe out these gases. That is the spirit. We breathe the soul. Now, when you look at the Hebrew biblical God, Yahweh, the tetragrammaton of Yahweh, YHWH, means to inhale and to exhale. The word Jesus means divine breath. So these things are relating to the universal soul and our place in the universe. When we actually understand, we begin to understand that we are just a mirror of what's going on up there.
Gosh, so many things there again I could respond to. I wanted to go back because a while ago at the beginning of our conversation when you were sharing about your 30 plus years in the kind of police environment, and that taught you to be very kind of grounded and really question everything and take things apart. You were in an area on investigation where you saw that there were monoliths and you were standing in front of them and you all walked around in a sunwise or an anti-sunwise. I don't know what you said there, but for me, that's like grounding in the energy before a craft came in. Can you take us back to that story, please?
Yeah, but basically, there was me and three friends that used to always go walking together. There was a particular forest that we would walk in, and again, we'd had many experiences in the forest, including portals opening up in the middle of the trees. But there was one evening when I just had this real urge that I needed to go to a place called the Clent Hills, and it is in a county called Shropshire in the UK. It's probably about 60, 70-minute drive from where I lived, and I just really had this overwhelming urge that I needed to go the next night. So I rang up the usual crowd who I usually used to go with. And I said, I've got this urge that I need to go to the Clent Hills tomorrow night. Are you free? The first one says yes, and I'm also getting this feeling I need to go. And then I rang the next one and the same, and the next one and the same. So I think we all went in my car and we all drove there. And it's at the top of a steep hill. And when you get to the top of this hill, in whichever direction you look at it, it is a different county of England. So it's kind of in the centre of about 4 different counties, which cross there, and that's probably why it's there. Then you have 4 quartz crystal monoliths, just 4. Now, the night before, I began to have mental images, and I began to see, looking in all directions, seeing orbs coming from all directions up the hill and into the centre of these monoliths. And that is the image that I kept getting. Now, the next night, as I say, we get there, and at the same time, we're all having these same urges to do the same things telepathically. We stood by whichever one we chose, and then the next person. So there's 4 monoliths and 4 people. So we all stood at a monolith each. Then we just felt, well, we need to kind of move to the next one, and then the next one, and then the next, and everybody did the same until I got back to the original monolith that they stood by. Now, there's one of our friends had got a camera and was taking pictures. Now, when I looked back at the picture, what I saw was orbs coming from all different directions, coming into the centre of the monoliths, which is what I'd seen mentally the day before. But when I looked up in the sky, in my mind's eye, it wasn't a mothership, but it was a circular ship. And when you looked up, all you could see was a really bright light. Like, when you look at the Close Encounters movie at the end, and the doors of the ship open and there's a real bright light. That's what it was like. And I saw all of these orbs actually going up into this vessel. Several months later, one of the friends who was there on that night was speaking to a couple of her friends who live in that area. And she said, oh, yeah, we went to Clent Hills on such and such a night, and this is what happened. We went in this, I think it was counterclockwise direction, and we were opening some kind of gateway. And this lady just off the cuff just made a comment. You do realise there's a ship up there, don't you? She had no knowledge of what we'd done or what I'd seen. She says, you do know there's a ship there. And that's what had happened. We'd opened this gateway, and all of these orbs that I'd seen the night before were coming from all different directions and going up into that light. So when you look at the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which Steven Spielberg did in the 1980s, the storyline is you have all of these different people in different walks of life, doing different jobs, living in different areas, and it's driving them mad because they keep having this image of this place, and they don't know what it is until eventually they find themselves there, and they've been invited to a particular place where a landing is to take place. And that's what had happened to the 4 of us. We'd been invited to this particular place to do a particular job. So I liken that to my Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yeah.
There is so much going on. There's so many interactions of timelines, interactions of dimensions. Dimensions are simply a frequency. The return home is not a place, it is a vibration. And when you meet a certain vibration, you become aligned with a certain vibration, which is what Nikola Tesla was saying as well. When you meet that vibration, you can interact with whatever exists in that vibration. Mm-hmm. So if when I see things, whether it's massive UFO-shaped, cigar-shaped UFOs in the sky, 3 of them on a Saturday afternoon, I have aligned myself to the frequency band that they are in. And then when I drift out of that frequency band to come back to my own, they're still there, but I can't see them. Mm-hmm. That is what is happening. Sometimes we catch a glimpse of what is beyond the eyes.
Yeah.
Sometimes we hear things that are beyond the ears.
It's fascinating. There's just so many touch points here. And I think you're going to have to come back because I want to go more into some of the teachings that these three, I guess, leaders from the past, Leonardo da Vinci, Nikola Tesla, Sir Isaac Newton, that connect in. Do you remember in I've asked so many people this, and it's like that. What it's like a Mandela moment almost. Like, do you remember the list? What list? There was a list, and on the list were like Sir Walter Raleigh, Sir Isaac Newton, Leonardo da Vinci. It was a list of Illuminati or Cabal. Or do you remember that list?
Yes, it wasn't the Illuminati, it was a Priory of Sion.
There we go.
What happens with the Priory of Sion is their own internal rules state that there has to be a public documentation of their members. So it is a Priory of Sion. Now, one of the symbols of the Priory of Sion is a raised index finger, which relates to Aries. Now, Aries relates to the higher mind. So that list was the Priory of Sion.
So I'm
And
glad you do remember it because so many people are
yeah,
like,
yeah,
what is, what is? It was around the time of Lorna Byrne, Angels in My Hair. It was around the time of
yeah.
Deceit, Rhonda Byrne. It was around the time of Doreen Virtue, Cornering the Market in Angels. It was around that time. It's kind of a spiritual kind of revolution. And then and these documents that came out, the Kabbalah, uh, and then it kind of just got kiboshed and it's been redacted. So many things are hidden online because the asshats at the top are trying to, obviously rewrite history to their narrative, genocide the old people, sterilize the young people, in order to try and create this miserable 3D and 2D prison. They failed, they lost, it's not happening. We're breaking out of it, we're getting rid of them. And the discovery is on the way in this simulation that we're in.
Mm.
My goodness me, it's incredible.
It is going to change, and as Leonardo said, it's going to change. But let me just conclude really with the last paragraph of his foreword. It says, "All I speak of is there for you to see in ancient monuments, in the messages we send for you even now, in your fields of hate crop circles, which I have found, okay, which the people able to think will learn how to read, which I have, the Nazca lines, which can be read once you learn how to read them, which I have. Many layers exist in them. Soon, man will be able to read and understand, as there are those channeling information from us to help you move forward. That's what I'm doing." He then concludes, "We are watching, we are ready to embrace enlightened souls. I am Leonardo da Vinci." Now, that was the last paragraph of the 3-page foreword that he wrote. They are
Mm,
waiting for enlightened souls. I would say to that, they are waiting for people to remember that they are enlightened,
mhm.
because it is not about teaching people. It is not about taking them to a particular place. It is about provoking them to remember who they are, because the point of the journey is not to arrive. And if
Mhm.
there's nowhere to arrive, then you enjoy the journey because you're not always scrambling around to get somewhere.
Yeah,
The point
yeah,
of the journey is not to arrive.
yeah. The destination, the learning. So many things. We were going to go through war memorials and how the elites send their kids to Harvard and they send our kids to
Yeah,
murder,
of course I do.
and the symbology and stuff. And
Yeah,
I want to invite, I want to
yeah,
invite people in the comment section, guys. Don't do it in the live section because it goes after the broadcast. In the comment section, line up questions for Michael. Ask about Sir Isaac Newton, Leonardo da Vinci, the war memorials, symbology. So many of the things that you've already created, written, and done. Your book, The Movement, and exploring further anything that we've discussed here.
yeah.
Um,
I walked through my town a couple of weeks ago, and there was a stand with the Royal British Legion, and an ex-soldier came up to me and said, would you wish to donate? Uh, because there's 7,000 soldiers that have come back from war zones who are now homeless. And I said, but what the soldiers need to do is get together and refuse to fight, because you're being sent to these wars that are manipulated by certain people. And when you come back, you're thrown in the trash can.
mhm.
Don't you think you should think about that and stop fighting? And he agreed I had a point. What is Soldiers are brave people. I have members of my family who were soldiers. If I'd have had a different life path, I'd have probably joined the military instead of the police. But you have to realize you're not fighting for your country. And the politicians that send you there are not the ones fighting the wars. If you want to end wars, you send the politicians that create them and you make them go and fight them. And
Front
then
line.
overnight you would end wars.
Yeah.
And,
So
and as you were saying,
front lines.
they send our children to die and they send theirs to Harvard and eat.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
I'm one of them, I'm one of them people now that say enough is enough. Start thinking about what is happening. Start thinking about the motives of the people behind those who are sending you to fight. And then all of a sudden, when you're now used to them, they throw you on the trash can. You're homeless. You have nothing. You're destitute. That being the case, why do you go and fight? And it's the same as I said to the police. You silence the people, you're next. Because what you're doing is you're just being as dumb as anybody else. Because the things that you are now policing and enforcing, when I look at the face of the officers who are doing it, all I see is complete stupidity. There's nothing there. Because if they were to think what they were doing, they would not do it. But humanity's problem is it doesn't think.
Well, it's been programmed not to think. It's been done
not to
I
think.
mean,
And that's our fault.
yeah, it is. We accepted it. I say that all the time. We allowed it. That's why I'm kicking indoors and taking names now on my channel, bringing people like you forward, giving us different multi-layers in different ways to think, to undo. Again, next time we come together, we need to talk about your take on the observer and the creation aspect. It's so important. Do we need an observer, therefore, to energize an aspect of life, creation? These are very fascinating subjects. So let's bring
it's a very interesting one.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
The science as it's presented to ourselves is deeply flawed.
Oh my God, yes.
And that is quite obvious. Even their own admission that their observation of atoms, which don't really exist, but their observation of atoms change the behavior of the atom.
Yeah.
So therefore, they can never ever get an accurate account of how the atom behaves. Right. They're always changing the behavior. So all of these studies they do and all of these databases that they create from their observation are from flawed observations. So modern day science as we know it is deeply flawed.
It's bought and paid for. It's like who's funding it?
Yes,
Who
exactly.
wants to create a narrative? It's going to become, walking around London again. Oh my God, these ugly, hideous, dreadful buildings. That's Lord flipping bollocks, and that's Lord arsehole, and they're all competing. And I'm going to build this building, and they don't care about us. We're nothing to them. They're just carving up the world between themselves. And the atom theory. Oh, look, there's an atom. Oh, it'd be bouncing in there, or I can see it now bouncing out again. Where'd it go? It went into the quantum vacuum. Oh, the quantum vacuum. Oh, the field of possibilities. Thank you, Lynn McTaggart. I mean, come on. It's just ludicrous. We got to go there as well.
The vacuum effect, where the Casimir effect in a vacuum changes the behavior of physical objects. Well, if it's a vacuum, how is there physical objects? I will go into next time what black holes are and everything else, and put science right. As I say, I get it from the true scientists, and modern day quantum physics is deeply flawed. And if you bake a cake and put it into a shape that is flawed, then every cake that you make will also have that flaw. So it is time now for science to, certainly the science that is presented to us, there's a different science going on, but the science that is being presented to us is deeply flawed and it needs to be put right.
Yes, it does indeedy doody. And somebody from Warsaw with their lovely Birmingham accent is going to put it right.
Even elocution lessons.
No, I love it. I love your accent. And I think it's really been highlighted as well because of the death of the beloved Ozzy Osbourne. And, again, people so gullible. I mean, so gullible. The man has done 1,000 interviews saying, I didn't know the bat was alive. He's probably off his head on drugs and drink on stage in the first place, thrown it back. He thinks it's a toy one, and then, anyway. And then I said something about, oh, I'm sad, like it really affected me, like some people have, there's some people do, they get under your skin. And I've been watching the basement tapes that he taped a few weeks ago with his family, so it felt super close when he suddenly died. And had a little cry, and I was like, wow, that's really moved me. And then I made a little comment under the last basement tape I watched, just sending love. They'll never see it, but I thought, oh, I wanted to. And some man goes, well, promoting the millionaires. I'm like, oh my God, what is wrong with people? And then someone else in another comment said, wasn't he a satanic? I just went, delete. Just don't even bother. Just delete. So yeah,
That's all I do. I don't. I really don't entertain. No, I used to, but I don't entertain it anymore. It's a
yeah,
case of when you're ready, when you'll catch up one day.
yeah,
But at the moment, I'm not going to entertain absolutely ridiculous comments
yeah.
because I have better things to do.
Yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
you
But
know,
I just loved how Birmingham was kind of highlighted and the Brummies were downtown and they were all
yeah, of course.
salute to a great man who really was just so loving. Just watch his bloody videos, his interviews. He's just such a funny man, a loving man. Looks so like my brother, reminds me of my brother so much. Mm.
Yeah, there's a lot of people like him that have come from that region. And some people are aligned, and some people manifest because of that alignment. Going
Yeah,
back to the law of attraction I was speaking about earlier, uh, it's not always talent; it's alignment. It's not hard work. You don't make lots of money through hard work. You get
mhm.
lots of money through being able to operate the vibration of the universe,
Yeah, I love that.
because you get what you are.
Brilliant. Brilliant. All right, then. Well, Michael Feeley, thank you so much. Again, we'll come back to continue different elements. I want to say to people out there, calm down if you were triggered, if you were offended. Look at which part of you is pushing against information. Is it because your ego doesn't want you to be wrong? Or are you truly offended? And if so, get over it because we don't actually care. We're just here to converse and share information as a means to help people unlock themselves to their true, whatever reason they're
Well,
here for. There's
which
many
is
ways to
which
get
is why we have Isis, Mary Magdalene, and Mother Mary, which all relate to the silence of the ego, to learn through quiet contemplation. Because if your mind is full, then the in is full,
there.
and
Hmm.
this information can't get in. And that is why Mother Mary is quiet contemplation.
Hmm.
Why Isis is the silence of the ego. Because when you don't have an ego, when you will always have an ego, but when it is controlled, then you are balanced, and that's when you can hear and see the teachings.
Love it, love it, love it. And then next time we come back, we'll ask about the keys on the wall behind you and the other painting there of the man with the gorgeous chest.
There's more at the top as well as the camera's not,
Oh, I
but
love it.
I'll
Love it.
lift the camera up next time.
All right. So in the meantime, tell people how they can get hold of you, how they can find you and get your books and
Probably the epicenter is my website, which is michael-feeley.com. If they just type my name into the search engine, I'll come up somewhere, some interview somewhere. but the website is probably the best because there's lots of free articles on there, lots of videos, lots of things on there. But it's michael-feeley.com, and that's probably the best place to start.
brilliant. And we get the spelling of your name from the title of this video, but also spell it one time for people because sometimes people miss that bit too.
Yeah, the spelling of my surname is Feeley.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Well, thank you, Michael Feeley. See you soon. God bless you. Really grateful for your time and your information. And to you guys out there, I am Dani Henderson. I know I rattle your cages sometimes, but it's all right. There's a lot of love there, and there's a lot of good intent, as you know. So take care. Sending love from my heart to yours, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, Michael.